Yeah, no, they get. All right, calling the roll, Joel Thibodeau. Here. Lori Brown.
Here.
Kirby Clemens Jr. Here. Tanya Anderson. Dolores Washington.
Here.
Andre Stanton. Here. Rashonda Walker.
Here.
All right.
City attorney is also
City
here.
Attorney, Mr. Denmark, and so we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Hope everybody's had a chance to review. Did anyone have any additions to the agenda?
Now, okay, I'm not sure if this would be an addition or not, but the email that was.
Okay.
Would that fall in line as it relates to, you know, what's being discussed for changes?
We may need to insert item C because everyone has not returned with their feedback from their council members. If anybody's ready to share that out, you can put that as an agenda item prior to.
I can send it out, after this meeting, because I hadn't completed it,
Okay,
but she was supposed to get back with me, so.
okay.
And I have mine
You have your,
digital,
Yeah.
digitally, I can share it.
Yeah.
okay.
If we want
Are we ready to discuss it or we want to wait until, or just want
Well, I guess, you know, my thoughts is that what George sent out was kind of rather extensive.
to?
I mean, because we did, you know, write up
Yeah,
a,
yeah, we had,
in-
he wrote up his insight, his concern, and then he sent
It's an extra.
this additional, and I still don't
Those are
know
yours?
who's the author of this, but I'm thinking it came from him.
and that's because, well, I know when I met with my council representative, which was when me and Lori Brown, we both, were there, and she. There, the things that they expressed were encompassed in what George Turner provided.
Okay.
As well as it relates to certain views from the council's perspective, and that they did have concerns that we had not been provided with
Yeah.
the minutes or what was discussed by them in another meeting that I believe that was with Mr. Denmark.
It was a retreat.
It was a retreat.
That they and so, and the reason why I'm just bringing it up is because I recall that even though we didn't have a meeting last time, that, Dave Marcus, I believe Dave Marcus, some of the things that he spoke about as from that open forum that we allowed them to, you know, to offer community comment. He expressed concerns as well, because he obviously was aware of that meeting and was saying that, you know, we had been provided that
Yeah.
feedback.
Well, we had that item, since our first meeting. Even the agenda that the city council created, in June, or I think it was June or May or June. They had on there, presentation of charter concerns from the mayor and council. And we have not, with the exception of what I got from the mayor and what we received from George Turner in writing, we hadn't gotten that in writing from the council.
And Mr. Five.
And this, oh yeah, Mr. Five, I keep waiting. Mr. Five, also sent a,
Yeah, and so I guess from an expectation, why, I mean, because since like say what Mr. Frank, you know, Councilman Frank provided, that encompassed, you know, concerns based on how he wrote it up, that included the other council members.
are y'all ready to discuss your council members?
I would like to do it next time. Because I'm going through
Yeah,
But George Turner's, which was
okay,
dense, I mean,
Yeah.
not in obtuse, but just it's
Right.
very dense.
right,
And so I would like a little. time to go through that.
Okay.
And maybe I had one person I do want to talk to.
okay, all right, so we.
And
both have-
my person was supposed to email me
Okay,
a hard copy of
okay,
it, so I'll
So-
ask her for that.
I'll make sure it's on the next agenda. Okay, and hold me to that, Madam Vice Chair, that is gonna be on the next agenda, that we do a formal presentation of city council's concern.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah. Cause I, wasn't able to meet face to face, with my council member, but we did touch base, we did communicate with,
mhm,
electronically. And there were some concerns. So I would like to at least have the opportunity to kind of discuss corporate concerns before we
Okay.
move forward with the vote.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
okay. All right, so we have the agenda in front of us as presented. I have a motion to, approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the amendment.
Second motion.
Okay, I'll vote, motion and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Yeah, no.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first, next item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have public comments? No public comments this week at this meeting, thank you. So moving on to our agenda. Approval of the May 14th night, 2024, and the October 22nd, 2024 meeting minutes. The May 14th minutes were the minutes that were taken by city staff for the very first meeting that we had. And they had not gotten those back to us. They had them on last meeting's agenda, but since we didn't meet, we didn't approve. So, everybody has reviewed minutes.
Well, I want to just make sure, because on the October 22nd, I know that we gotta, I revised them and corrected them, so it should be the most recent that we received.
Right.
Yeah, because my file wasn't able to be corrected, but that is the one that we just received, because I think the city clerk recalled the initial one, and then found something, so as to that second batch, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay. And I know I received them.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented, as submitted?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion or corrections to those minutes? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes for October 22nd and May 14th, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, ayes have it, meeting minutes are approved. On November 6th, we had a meeting that at the time of the meeting, a quorum was not present at the time that we should be called for. Excuse me. At my suggestion, the vice chair allowed public comments to be made and reported, at that meeting. So, my friend Span like it. So we had those, what I'd like to do is I'd like to, vote to include those public comments into the public record of the Charter Commission. Although we did not, so because if we would have called a meeting and it was part of the meeting, they would have been in the public record. But because it did not happen within a public meeting, then I believe that it's proper for us to, vote to include those recorded and archived statements into the public record for the Charter Commission. Mr. Denmark, is that proper? Yes, sir, it is. Okay. So, if there's no further discussion, can we have a motion to, include these public comments into the public record?
My motion to include the public comment.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, next, going to get to kind of the meat of this meeting, is a discussion on the form of government. And where I'm getting this from, is from the, documents that were provided by Councilman George Turner. At the last meeting, he sent a letter, with concerns about what we were discussing. I think that there was an assumption that the Charter Commission was only taking into consideration certain items that had been presented and not the entire charter. And the fact of the matter is, it just happened to be what we were discussing, were the roles and powers of the mayor. However, once I've read his concerns, and although Mr. Turner didn't appoint me, he is my councilman. As well as this document that I'm not sure who the author was, but it seems to be something that was presented to the legislators to support the changing of the charter in 2021 under SB 20. And continuously through this document, it is stated that the city of Stonecrest is a a council manager form of government. Okay, now,
I'm sorry, just for the record, that document you were referring to is the justification for supporting
40
Stonecrest.
Stonecrest charter changes, correct. And is a very well-written summary presenting an argument, and is well-written. I think that it's based in fact.
Based on how it's written,
Mhm.
it appeared to me that this was what was presented, I believe, as a justification to make the modification to the regional charter.
Yes.
Okay, which would give you the impression that the council was in.
I would say, yeah, I would say that the council was advised of this. But I don't know if this came from the council to the legislators, if this was prepared by city staff, if this was prepared by a citizen. Because there were a number of citizens, in my recollection, that were insistent that our charter called for a council manager form of government. And that's what I was involved with the charter from the beginning. Well, not the very beginning, but when the charter went up into the legislature, I was there. I knew the charter pretty much front to back.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go
finish.
ahead. The inclusion of an elected mayor with powers in the original charter, to me, tells me that this was intended to be something other than a commission, council manager form of government. Okay. However, there are others who say that the inclusion of a city manager in the charter automatically makes it a council manager form of government. Okay. But to me, if you have a mayor and the charter gives the mayor powers, whether it's significant powers or if it's diminished powers, it is some kind of mayor council form of government, and it could be either a strong mayor or a weak mayor. And so, and we had legislators come in prior to the changes being made, making the argument to the mayor at the time that this is a weak mayor form of government, and he was making the assumption that it was a strong mayor form of government. And so, with all of that, all I can say is that it's confusing and it's ambiguous. And that's one of the reasons why the charter had to be at least clarified. What type of government do we have? So, and I think that that's gotta kind of be the basis before we move forward, because if we decide that we really are a council manager form of government, then I have to ask, why are we going through the expense and the headache of electing a mayor citywide? And the mayor has no authority other than a ceremonial authority. why are we electing somebody citywide? To me, the reason why you elect somebody citywide when you have districts already is that in some capacity, there has to be an elected voice that speaks on behalf of the city as a whole with some kind of powers to affect that. Okay? And as it is now, we have a citywide elected official who has no authority in the meetings. And with all deference to Mr. Turner, the fact that the mayor chairs the Economic Development Authority and the Economic Redevelopment Authority and some other things that are peripheral to the actual management of the city does not constitute real power in the hands of the mayor.
I hear what you're saying. And, I noticed you did on several occasions use to you that, from your perspective.
Yeah.
And so therein, I guess is the real, concern or what we have to get from is that not so much from, how we see it, but, how are things done, as a model, as a more of a standard.
Mhm.
The council manager form of government is nothing new. It's been around quite some time. I went, doing a little history, research on that. And therefore, the concerns, I think, have come from the type of mayor that we have allowed to function in the city of Stonecliff. And is that a model or, somewhat out of alignment and has led to some of the problems with the city?
Mhm.
And so that's where when you start looking at certain authorities or powers that are invested in the mayor, and not as much tied to the council, which is, 5 individuals for us that are elected, to work in with the city manager. Then you start to have, there can be conflicts of interest.
Mhm.
And that is what was reflected in the original charter. They got it modified. And so now I just think we should tread lightly when we are looking at restoring anything that could cause an alignment, a misalignment to happen again.
Here's my, it's not kind of my, one of the things that I think we need to kind of focus on is what are we really doing here, right? Because some people in the community, and even on the commission, they view this as us bartering in the street between members of city council, they wrestle for power. They go on this side or that side of this power struggle on the city council. We really need to get past that because this has nothing to do with George Turner or Jasmine Cobble, or Terry Fire, or anybody who occupies the city council right now. We're creating a document that's going to be discussed for decades. And, I'm city attorney in some cities, but we're looking at a charter that goes back to the 1800s. So these charters are bigger than the people who are on city council now. So let's just stop thinking about people there. And furthermore, we seem to have this fear in this community about power concentrated in the hands of the mayor and all that. I don't think people have read the charter because all of the powers that we are free to give to the mayor, guess who has them right now? The mayor pro tem. The mayor pro tem right now is a behemoth in this city. And we're fortunate that George Turner is a good man. If somebody else was mayor pro tem who controlled the agenda, chaired the meetings, voted, can make a motion and vote at the meeting while chairing the meeting and controlling the agenda, all of the power that we were afraid concentrated in the hands of this horrible mayor that we used to have, well, all of those powers are now concentrated in the hands of the mayor pro tem. And if he was a bad man, he could be a tyrant. And if George Turner stepped down tomorrow and somebody else was mayor pro tem, people would realize that, oh, wow, too much power is concentrated in the hands of the mayor pro tem. George makes it look easy because he's a kind gentleman. If somebody who's not a kind gentleman was mayor pro tem and wielded that power, it would be a nightmare in Stonecrest. So let's stop thinking about the people who are city council right now. Dave Marks accused me of being an advocate for the mayor, which was a stupid thing for him to say. Because I'm not an advocate, I'm an advocate for good government in the city of Stonecrest. I'm an advocate for a good charter that's going to govern us for decades after I stopped being city attorney, and all of us are doing something else with our wonderful lives. And this charter has to survive us. So it ain't about Jasmine or nobody who's on the council right now. Think about, I think we should are legitimately afraid of a concentration of power in any hand. But right now we have that. The office of the mayor pro tem is bursting with power and ripe for abuse. And if we get a different mayor pro tem, then people will start to see, because we're reactionary. And I'm trying to be proactive. Let's think about this. Not wait until a bad person becomes mayor pro tem, so now we got to change the charter because the mayor pro tem has to. I'm saying the mayor pro tem has power right now. Right now.
Can I ask you a question? Because this is what I got. One, I thought the mayor pro tem was sort of a superpowered councilman because that, because they really get their wield that power. So I agree with you. I thought that the problem, as I understood it under the previous charter, is that the boundaries of power of the mayor were not, it was unclear. So we didn't have a clear, I guess, separation of powers or delineation of powers, which is what left things ripe for abuse because people either didn't know or the mayor could just say it was so. So I feel that when we implement these changes that we're looking at implementing, we're going to have to make certain that we have clear delineation and a lack of ambiguity, because that appears to me to be when things ran off the rails. So right now, what we have now is a mayor with no real powers, and you're going to get a mayor pro tem who's really just a superpowered councilman who can vote, preside, and do all of those things. And it's sort of like I don't see how that fixed the problem necessarily.
It just shifted it to a different person who we like.
Exactly.
It took the power, the problem that person that we didn't like, and gave the power to somebody that we did like. So we were still dealing with personalities, and we need to stop dealing with personality, Jasmine, Jason, George. We have to start dealing with the charter that's going to govern us for decades from there.
Let me interject this. The mayor pro tem is someone that is selected by the council. The council has to agree.
But he's not selected by the people.
No, but that's what I'm saying, the people, but the council members are selected by the people. And council members are, 5 of them. And among the council members, they select a mayor pro tem. So the thought of that, this superpowered mayor pro tem, and I would have to be honest, I don't know exactly how or what method they would go about removing them if they saw that this person went off the rails. But I would think that if the council can vote a mayor pro tem now in, that they can also turn and decide that they don't, if that person goes off the rails.
The issue is with the particular city. The people do not decide who becomes the mayor pro tem. The council members do. And the people should have a say who's going to have that kind of power. The people, only the city of Stonecrest select the mayor. That's the only person who stands for citywide election. Everybody else is in there with the people. The mayor stands citywide. Citywide. Therefore, the people select their mayor, and the person that they select, whoever it is. 20 years from now, they'll elect the mayor who's a people's dog. But what have the people gotten for their vote? Nothing. So what I would suggest to you is that we haven't fixed the problem that were in the old charter. We just took it from the office of the mayor and give all those powers to the mayor pro tem, and the potential for abuse is still right there. And we're still playing personalities as opposed to creating a useful charter. My suggestion to you, good people, is to say, let's balance out the charter. Yeah, we have a council manager form of government, but in every council manager form of government, and I represent a number of them, the mayor, the office of the mayor presides over the meetings, has no vote in case of a tie, and we don't have this concentration of power like we do right now in the office of the mayor pro tem. Look at the charter and see if you think that's balanced, and if you would be comfortable with the next person who come after George Turner having so much power.
I still beg the difference. One, when you say about having a mayor that's elected by all the people. One of the things that we have learned is that our community hasn't, advanced in governmental affairs to fully understand when they elect people into office, what types of powers they have. I contend that if they did, they would have never elected Mayor Jason Larry previously.
I have more faith in the people than that. I think they never did.
They voted Jason Larry in. I didn't. I never voted for him.
Yeah.
But, there are people in the community that did vote for him, and enough that basically got him elected, not once but twice. So,
I mean, they elected all of them.
Yeah.
Everybody was
And,
elected by the people.
right, and that's what all the city council members were voted by the same people who voted in the mayor. They all, all the council members who voted for who they wanted to represent their neighborhood, their community, also voted for mayor. And if the majority of the people in Stonecrest didn't want a particular person as mayor, that person would have never been mayor, despite who they voted for in city council.
Mr. Thibodeau, if I might, the reason why we have charter, we have checks and balances, in case somebody starts off well and then they go rogue, well, then the charter provides a break on that. Well, you can't do but so much, because if you might have started with good intentions and had all the confidence of the people, you got in office, got drunk with power, started acting crazy. Well, the charter doesn't allow you to do but so much damage.
Right.
And that's why, yeah, they elected Jason Larry, but when he started to act crazy, there should have been methods under the charter to prevent that. And right, there wasn't for him, and right now there's not for George Turner, and we're just lucky that he's a good man.
Well, can I ask you a question along those lines? Because it kind of dovetails into something that was in one of I think Mr. George Turner's thing, or whatever, it was in one of these things I read. When you talked about, because I happen to favor the idea of a mayor with the power to vote, a tiebreaker, but only that scenario. But is that, because there was a reference to that violating some separation of powers concern. Some reference about the mayor, I think was.
that's in right now, the mayor votes as a tiebreaker. That's already in the.
As a tiebreaker, and I think somebody had thought that, here it is, weaknesses in this 2021 document, one that you were referencing, which may have just been beforehand. I mean, I'm taking that this justification for supporting Stonecrest charter changes with the number 2020, the year 2021, the top of the page, was relative to the charter pre-amendment and not charter now. Okay, fine, because that was, I wanted to get that clear, because that way it was a little confusing, because I thought they were saying that it was still, the problems were still there, but I get it. But I agree with you that if we don't have, it's like the Constitution, it is the body that founds the government, gives it the power and sets the lines, and we have a way to stop any rogue person. I think that just the fact that a rogue gets elected is not evidence that the people were defective or foolish. It just is that it's like a con game. You fooled me as to who you were until you had the power to show me who you really were. That's not a fault of the people. That's a fault of the person. And he's now serving jail time. I understand.
Yeah, the electoral process is actually separate from the governing process.
Right.
Okay, the electoral process is who we put in there. The governing process is what they do when we get in there. But I've been wanting to say this from the beginning, and I think this is a good time to say it. No matter what charter we come up with, where you can look at a constitution, a charter, anything. No form of government, no charter that we come up with can compensate for the level of competence or character of the people that we vote in. Okay? We need to look at the charter as our safeguard, for when, just like Winston said, when the person goes rogue or when the person shows you who they are, and like that, the charter has the power to limit what they're able to do. Okay? That's why we can't write charters because of personality. Because it's kind of like you said, you give all this power to a good person and it's fine. And then it doesn't even have to be a bad person. It could be an incompetent person. It could be an inexperienced person. It could be a person with an agenda, but they think it's well-meaning. And they fall outside of what the people put them there to do. And so that's why I couch this discussion in form of government. I'm not talking about Mayor Cobble versus Mayor Larry or Pro Tem, Adoma versus Pro Tem, Turner or anything like that. What's our form of government? So we can decide who our elected officials are. And then when we decide who our elected officials are, then what powers are we gonna give each group of elected officials if we have more than one group?
And do we have, from your experience, because I know you told us about whether there are outliers and inliers and all that. Is there a city charter that you are aware of that adequately does what we just talked about, limiting the power, having sufficient guardrails, and maybe it might be a city that went through something comparable or something, whatever, that just wasn't working right, that came in and provided a good basis that we can kind of say that's a good model to follow.
I don't know if there's one that really stands out because some of them are really, really good, but then the mayor has a veto. Yeah, some of them are good, but then it does that. That's a little bit unusual.
Okay.
I think there are charters out there that can provide a model, but there's not one that I would adopt whole cloth. But what I would say is that if you look at the charters around the state, there's some themes that emerge, or things that they have in common. And I said that there's not a city in Georgia where the mayor doesn't preside. The school district well know that the mayor of Atlanta. That's not a real good comp, right? But the comp for the city of Atlanta is Detroit, right, or Boston. Comp for the city, a large city that has a full-time mayor that makes $150,000. That's not what we're talking about here. So Atlanta isn't really a comp. It's more of an outlier in Georgia. Comp for, for Stonecrest, Valdosta, or Alpharetta, other cities that are comparable size, and they're all cities like that, which is 99.9% of them in Georgia, in a very fundamental way, they all look the same. City council, mayor presides, votes only in the case of a tie. Mayor generally sets the agenda, but council members can put items on the agenda, two or more of them requested. And it's a very traditional model. City manager runs the day-to-day of the city. All the employees report to the city manager. The mayor and city council have one employee, which is the city manager. They can direct the city manager, but they cannot interfere with the administration of the government as the city manager runs the day-to-day. These are all the classics of Georgia City. And our charter is out of step with that. And I'm suggesting that not that we do something radical or different or innovative or recreate the wheel. I'm saying that we need to adopt the traditional model that has worked for cities across the state since time out of mind. And there are many examples of it in other places. And I think those charters put sufficient checks on the potential abuse of power by any one person.
And
I think
the
this-
I was
Go
just gonna say with GMA, the Georgia Municipal Authority. And I believe that Councilman George Turner referenced that. And he pulled when he was making a reference to that our, charter is not so far out of line with, standard.
It is
And
out of line.
But I do, I don't want to cut you off.
We both had our hands up. as
Oh,
well.
I'm sorry.
You go first, because you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I think the download is great. And I do agree from the perspective that we need to treat this whole process as a document that will be there to guide whoever is elected at that particular time. Here's my challenge: is when the amendment or the revised charter, the one that we have right now, was adopted, the mayor was a part of the city council at that particular time and was in agreement with it, irrespective to the fact that, was in that particular role at that particular time. And so my thoughts are, where I'm a little conflicted is, it seems like it was advocated for. And now there's a shift, and so I'm kind of struggling with that. Like, what was, so why was it agreed upon at that particular time? And what's different now? Like, why is there a change?
Yeah, it was kind of, what happened was, is that instead of declaring martial law, we, on a temporary basis, we codified martial law into our charter in response to what we thought was an emergency. We got Godzilla wreaking havoc all over the city of Stonecrest. How do we stop it? Okay, how do we stop it? We unplug all the power from that person, from that thing. And without understanding that, once this issue is behind you, how do you move forward after that? And moving forward after that has been extremely difficult because we do not have a citywide elected official that is committed to the well-being of the entire city. It's 5 people representing their different districts, making compromises with each other on how things go forward. And all they have to really be accountable to is the people in their little district. And the city as a whole suffers because you're making your people happy, and you're making your people happy, and you're making your people happy, but the city isn't moving forward as a whole. And so you ask, that's how I see the problem. I think that's how other government entities that Stonecrest should be partnering with. Because I've spoken to legislators, I've talked to commissioners, I've talked to people from the state. Stonecrest is difficult to deal with because there's no real cohesive direction that the city is moving into. Everybody's just concerned about taking care of people in their neighborhoods, dealing with concerns of people in their neighborhoods, and the city as a whole, the condition of the city as a whole has no focus.
Can I ask my question now?
Sure.
Okay, in section 301, power and duties of the mayor, and then section 201, council create, the structure and what they can do. In this discussion that we're having, what are we trying to change? What is the suggestion that I'm hearing in this discussion from the power that she has, or he, or the mayor, or whoever has, compared to the power that the section 201 have, which is the city council? What is the issue? The issue is that she can't preside over a meeting. The issue is that she doesn't have a vote, or he or she, or the position doesn't have a vote. The position doesn't have a voice. The position doesn't have controlling power. What is the difference between, because it states that the council changes everything, can make the rules, ordinance, what is the mayor not doing that the city council's not doing?
The mayor can't preside over the meeting.
So that's the big issue.
That's one of the issues.
Well, okay, then give me the list of the issues. Not over a meeting.
Okay, can't preside over the meeting. The mayor has to ask permission to speak. The mayor cannot add an agenda.
Hold on. Over meeting, has to ask to speak. Okay,
The mayor has to request things to be added to the agenda, does not set the agenda.
Right.
request items to be added.
Has to request, and the pro tem has to approve.
Okay.
Okay, the mayor cannot have any, outside of the kind of the regular working day,
Mhm.
has no supervisory or any kind of, governance authority over the city manager outside of what council says that they are able to do.
Any outside supervision?
Let me ask a question about that.
Let him finish,
Okay.
So those are your points.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, the mayor just basically has no authority.
Well, see, then, when you say this about that, any say so over the city manager, now, that's concerning. Because if we're in a council manager form of government, and the city manager is invested with carrying out, the wishes
Mhm.
of the council, and you now give the mayor authority over that city manager, that is like a conflict of interest there, because instead of the council, the manager reporting to the council, which is in line with our government, they're now sidestepping the council to the mayor.
Now, I'm not saying that that the city manager reports to the mayor, but who has direct oversight on what the city manager does day to day? Who has oversight to say this is what they're doing? Who advises on whether or not they're following the budget or whatever the city council, the policies that the city council has passed?
The city manager is the one that prepares the budget, isn't
You know,
Well, the mayor now,
under the charter, it says that the city manager, after review and, consultation with the mayor, shall present the budget to the city council. So so they're both responsible. I mean, that, you can read it in the charter, right?
Yeah.
That's those just the words that it says.
yeah,
But I will also point out in the original charter, the city manager did report to the mayor when we changed it to HB 21, that it would change it now, the city manager does not report to the mayor. And I think that is a positive development, because in Stonecrest, we had a strong mayor-friendly government. I mean, the mayor voted, the mayor set the agenda, the mayor picked the legal organ, the mayor could pick the department heads. I mean, it was a strong mayor form of government, which is what we had, and then we changed it, and it's no longer a strong mayor, but I think we overcorrected because we took those powers, because the thought was that Jason Larry was abusing those powers, and he was. And so we changed the charter back so that we don't take all the powers away from him, and a lot of those powers we gave to the mayor pro tem. A lot of them we just eviscerated altogether. And so I wasn't involved in that charter amendment, and I thought that the charter that came out of that process was a bad charter. Because a lot of times when you react to a situation, it's not a thoughtful and deliberate process. And I think we overreacted, we overcorrected. And now, and instead of having too much power concentrated in the mayor, we've made it an office that, I mean, why would anybody run for mayor? I mean, if you think about it, if somebody's going to stand for election, and say, I want to make a difference in my community, the city of Stonecrest, where I live, well, the last office that they would run for was mayor, because you do nothing as mayor. So we need to restore balance to the charter. And so, yes, the concentration of power in the hands of one individual is a bad thing. And we changed that to a certain extent, because we took it from the mayor, we gave it to the mayor pro tem, and we left the mayor a shell. And so now we have a charter that really is ineffective, and it really does nothing. And I think we need to restore balance by having a reasonably balanced office of the mayor, a reasonably balanced city council, and a city manager that runs the city day to day without the interference of the city council. So I'm advocating for a balanced charter, like you see in other communities. But our charter lacks balance.
Now, when you say our charter lacks balance, and I, for some reason, well, as you were speaking and what I was seeing is the real issue that maybe the city should not have a mayor. Because if we are, having this issue because we have this elected office of a mayor, yet we also employ, because these are taxpayer dollars. Now, when we get down to how much, that a city manager is costing Stonecrest citizens, because that's where the salary is coming from, tax dollars. And so if that is the case, and even what is the compensation for the mayor is tax dollars coming off of taxpayers' money. Then, and we having this issue is forming because you have this mayor and the council, and then we bring in the mayor pro tem who is picked from among the council members. Then it begs the question that if these are problems that we're saying that is to restore certain powers back into a mayor's office, then I think it's fair for us to consider maybe there shouldn't be a mayor in the city of Stonecrest.
Thank you for bringing us to the question I've been trying to get to all night. That is the question. Do we need a mayor? In a council, in a council manager form of government, if the council is the governing body and the city manager is who handles the day-to-day operations of the city, and the city council is who hires the manager, that's who supervises the manager, that's who holds the manager accountable. They got the power to hire, fire, investigate, as long as they don't interfere on a day-to-day basis. And that's something that we also need to be clear, because that's kind of ambiguous as well. We need to make that clear, what constitutes interference. Do we need a mayor? Or do we need, and this is something that I came up, and if I would have been included in SB 21, I would have brought this up. As opposed to continue to have a mayor, convert the current mayor's office to another council seat citywide, add one more council seat citywide. And so now we're set up more like the DeKalb County Commission, where we have 5 individual districts, geographical districts that comprise of neighborhoods and parks and people and businesses. And then we have 2 citywide elected council people representing the interests of the city in this parliamentary body. So there's no mayor. You elect your pro tem or your vice or your lord mayor or whatever you want to call them, like the city of Decatur, they elect their presiding officer, and that's the mayor. Okay? But we still have to have elected representation that represents the entire city. We're not the size of the city of Decatur. We're much larger. We have much more many people than the city of Decatur. But to me, that clears out the ambiguity as to what the mayor does and what the council does. You have citywide elected officials on the council. You have a city manager over here who has their job. You have a council over here who does their job. And there's no ambiguity about the powers of the mayor. And the presiding officer is elected from the city council like it is now.
Look, the challenge I have with that, I mean, I think, I hear the recommendation. First thing I'm asking, this is probably just on a base level, so if you don't have a mayor, I mean, you will also not have a mayor pro tem, right?
Right, you would have a presiding officer, and whatever you want to call the presiding officer in the charter, that's what you call it.
Yeah. So, Lori raised a really great question moments ago. And like, what is the issue? And it sounds like can preside over a meeting, must ask to speak. And I forgot what the third. Sound like
Request item to add it to agenda and any outside supervision.
Well, I thought they had a
They
pro
can put
tem
it-
meeting. Isn't there a
items
pro
on
tem meeting prior to those meetings that are held?
There is a work session.
Isn't
There
that
a
an
work
opportunity?
session.
So when you say must ask to speak, isn't that an opportunity to say, hey, I'd like to raise
So
a concern or I'd like to speak to.
what if it's denied?
I mean, I don't know the process. I mean, I'm just
I
asking.
don't know, but I'm saying, if the mayor asks to speak and the mayor pro tem denies the mayor to speak, where is the voice of the citywide vote? There is a citywide vote to put the mayor in place.
So we would look to not have abolished the mayor's position due to a denial to speak at a meeting.
Due to a lack of power to even see. In other cities, the mayor doesn't have this overriding, overarching power. But the mayor does preside over the meeting. So that the mayor has some kind of control, not even control, has some kind of governance over how the city business goes forward and how it's conducted. And in the conducting of those meetings, as the chair presiding over the meeting, can make sure that the city's business goes forward. Not just District 1 or District 4 or District 5's business gets handled. But the city's business proceeds for the benefit of the city.
Or a voice is what you're saying.
The collective voice.
But now, that's out of curiosity. It seems that, I hear what you're saying, but that seems also to be solvable by giving the mayor a good framework within which to work, so we're clear, and not getting rid of the mayor, tagging on what you talked about. We talked about expenses and city council members making $15,000 a year and the mayor's making 20. You're gonna add 2 city council, I think you proposed 2 more city council meetings.
Mhm.
That's $30,000. That's already more.
Yeah, I got the math work there.
Yeah, that's already more expensive
Yeah.
than what we're talking about. And I think that we could fix this scenario to make the mayor work in a manner that gives him more voice and gives the community a voice. But before I would just say, let's just scrap that because we've just kind of been on a slippery slope. We went from ill-defined powers of the mayor, abused powers of the mayor, weak mayor, we got no mayor. You know, and I'm like, well, that you know, I don't know that I want to go in that direction. I think that we could probably.
It's a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah,
isn't there?
yeah.
If I'm right, we have to understand the different branches of government, right? Because the city council members are legislators. And the mayor is an executive. So you can't abolish a whole branch of government. You have to have what does an executive do, right? Think about it like on the national level. What does the president actually? He's the executive. The president makes appointments. Under state law, for housing authorities in the state of Georgia, this is the General Assembly practice, official code of Georgia annotated. The mayor of every city in the state of Georgia appoints the members to the housing authority. That's a state law. And as well, Stoneford doesn't have a mayor, so what do you want to do? It doesn't say somebody who's in the role, it says a mayor. It presupposes that every city is going to have a mayor. We'd be the only city that doesn't have a mayor. So and there are a lot of powers under state law that are the powers of the mayor of the city. And so we have to have a mayor because those powers are invested in the mayor by state law. Secondarily, you know, executives preside. For instance, the Vice President of the United States presides over the United States Senate. Vice President of the United States doesn't have a vote in case except in a tie, but that's the presiding officer. That's what an executive does. Makes appointments, and they're the presiding officer, and they vote in the case of a tie, and in some rare cases, they exercise a veto power. This is a check on the legislative branch of government. And so so now we would have a legislative branch of government with no executive to preside, and so so there's no balance in the government.
Right.
These different branches of government exist for a reason, and that's what I'm saying. Right now, we're trying to take it down to the studs and reinvent city government. I would encourage us not to do that. I would encourage us to try to find balance in the form of government that we have right now. And it's important for the mayor to preside over the meetings because it's a check on the legislative branch of government. It's important for the mayor to have appointment powers with the approval of the council. That's what happens on the national level. That's an executive power. The appointment power is executive in nature with the advice and consent or the approval of the legislators. So we just need to restore balance. Like Mr. Clemens said, we don't need to just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, now you're gonna be overcorrected before. Man, we're gonna abolish the whole office of the mayor. I mean, just being real, we be out here looking crazy. Yeah, I mean, why would we just dial in and vote by citizens? We don't need a city council because there's a lot of money. We got rid of all of them. We just vote on our phone. So we just need
Mr.
to be
Denmark,
back.
did you just hear Ms. Washington, that maybe we don't need a city.
We don't need a city.
And that was something that was stated in the last meeting. I believe it was Ms. Donna DePriest.
Well, I mean,
That,
It was Donna Priest Brown, yeah. and
Yes,
she-
Ms. Donna
she made that
DePriest Brown.
statement.
Yeah, but I
that she- and I'm just saying that the reason, that's why I brought up that, said, well, maybe we don't need a mayor. Because what really has happened, and that probably most people know, and some won't say out loud, is that we get people into these positions that are elected, and then there's these form of nepotisms or whatever you want to call it. But that's what happens with the appointments and a lot of other things that occur within the city. And then that causes a lot of the problems that we wind up having within our cities because the interest of the people really is not there. And there are a lot of personal interests built in to what people are doing instead of the actual community interest. And so that's why for me, I'm cautious on certain things simply because of human nature. It's not so much what you say, I'm watching, what do you do? And, you know, there's so much potential in this area, in Stonecrest. But when I look around and I go around in the city of Stonecrest, I see so much untapped potential. And it has a lot to do with the self-interest, not the real community interest in mind. And that is what I think has been the problem, you know, as it relates to what went on previous and even what is at hand now. You know, because technically we are here to make recommendations. Plain and simple, to recommend if we saw or we see that that is necessary. So I would just say that, you know, we have to be mindful of what we're really doing because, you know, sometimes there are personal self-interest that built or baked into what is being asked because of what will be gained under that.
Well, if I might, and I don't agree. You know, we have to kind of understand that there were a lot of people who were against the city of Stonecrest, and then a lot of people are still against the city of Stonecrest existing, and that's fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion, but we had an election, right? And the people said we want to have the city of Stonecrest, and that's what we have. And we talk about, you know, corruption. Well, if we look up corruption in the dictionary, it'll say DeKalb County. So we would be getting rid of the city of Stonecrest and going to what? How many DeKalb County commissioners have been to prison?
I know,
I mean,
but
so it's not like we would abolish the city of Stonecrest and then go to some utopian place. We go back to DeKalb County and they'll take all of our money and shift it north of I-20, and it'll look like a palace up there and we'll get what we get. So that ain't the solution.
Well, let me clarify my point. After he had stripped us down to the stud, and I just said, then we're getting rid of the city. I didn't mean that we shouldn't have a city. I'm for having a city.
Oh, no, yeah.
So,
No, I
I
got
mean,
you.
but where after he had given us the whole ladder of
Right, well, that's what I
completion,
felt that's where
I
we're
just
headed.
said, and then we wouldn't have a city.
Yeah.
That's
because there's a lot of anti-city people.
But I
outside
think
of
we can
Stonecrest.
work where we can build a city, like, you know, I mean, I've seen,
This
I've seen
referendum
but how
passed.
Brookhaven just,
Yeah.
you know, grew
But
up
do you
overnight.
know-
I worked there
but
for
do you
20
know
years and it was nothing
Brookhaven's
but.
first mayor was
Let
ousted.
her finish. please.
And I've seen people didn't have places to stay. And you know, that was my work community for 25 years.
Mhm.
So it can be done. It can be done. And now you go through there, you don't recognize.
Mhm.
So I think with all the resources and the people that we have and the support that we can get, I think we can build a great city.
Absolutely, we're a toddler city. When I say toddler, it's like we went through the terrible twos, but you don't just get rid of the kid and you just say, all right, gotta let you mature a little bit. Corruption exists in government. I was a prosecutor in 2 different states, at Georgia and New York. Corruption is everywhere. We're not gonna get rid of that.
That's
We
right.
can minimize, we can have systems of checks and balances, which even with perfect checks and balances doesn't eliminate corruption because corruption is just that, illegal. I do have another question though, because I still like the mayor form of government. If we, as we deal with the powers of the mayor, would the office or the position of mayor pro tem remain? Or do we need to also strip that down? Or what happens at, I'm just trying to figure out, because it seems that pro tem has been built up because the mayor has been taken down. So as we talk about restoring and putting guardrails for the mayor, do we need to look at eliminating, or what do we do with the pro tem?
We need, I think you need a mayor pro tem who would just do that, mayor for a time. If the mayor's
Okay.
indisposed, the mayor pro tem steps in and, you know, exercise all the powers of the office of the mayor. And that's his only role.
Okay.
The mayor's not present, the mayor pro tem
Gotcha.
kind of steps in. We created a mayor pro tem unlike any other. And I think that we need to kind of go back to a more rational, reasonable office of the mayor pro tem, whose only role, job, and function is to step in the place of the mayor if the mayor's indisposed.
That's what I was getting at. So as we create these powers for the mayor, we are mindful, as you indicated earlier, that we don't have a superpowered mayor pro tem. We're gonna, and that works fine, because now we put guardrails up. But I say we're a toddler city, man, so we just do some terrible twos. That just happens, but you know, and in New York City, where's their mayor or former mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
My question now is, where do we start?
So we go back to, and kind of like everybody got upset, but it comes back to where do we separate the powers of the mayor from the powers of the council?
Mhm.
That's what it comes down to. Does it need to go back to where it was? No. And I also believe that there were more flaws in our elected leadership than there were in the charter. Because that's what caused the overreaction. Okay? So we have to get somewhere, like Mr. Denmark said, a place of balance. Yes, ma'am.
So with the state Senate Bill 21, what did it change?
It took all the powers away from the mayor that the mayor previously had.
Okay, that's
It
my
put all the-
understanding.
It also seems to have put all the appointments in the hands of council,
Okay,
not the mayor.
okay.
Which is a problem anyway, because you indicated these are powers that the executive branch has to maintain.
So,
So we kind of got to go back to the original and then
yeah.
clean it up.
Yeah, and based on the Senate bill, then we tweak the roles a little bit, right? Because you can't change the bill, but you can make,
Amanda.
you can amend the
Mhm.
suggestions to it. So let's start, in my opinion, with what was the Senate bill, and then go up from there. Because if it stripped it down, they stripped it down because of the extreme, the position, not the person, the position. So, and I'm a person that I think we should have a mayor. I think we should have a city. I mean, I was here in the beginning as well. And we're young. We're gonna make mistakes. And I know that we're gonna make mistakes, but we just need to tweak what we need to tweak, prioritize what we can find a balance to, because we're all over the place, in my opinion. So I don't, I'm like, I hear, our attorney, I hear you, I'm listening to everybody here. And that's why I asked the question, what does the position not have that can help with the balance? Because all we talking about now is a balance. Am I on the same page?
That's correct.
Okay. So I think that's what we need to start looking at, of what we feel like a balance would be. Not get rid of the mayor, not throw the baby in the water out, the balance, what we can all live with. We're not gonna always agree, we're gonna agree to disagree, but what we can live with as a group that will, everybody not gonna be happy. But let's find that balance and we start there.
I agree, and I would also add, and I have a question.
Mhm.
I read again George Turner's comments in his thing. Are there other, because we just focused on the mayor for the bulk of our conversation, but are there other matters in the charter that are also problematic?
Yes.
That because I see a lot of talk
Yes.
about the mayor and this stuff, and I'm like, well, what other areas? So what areas should we be targeting in particular?
One of the things, if I might, you have officers under the charter, right? The finance director, city clerk, internal auditor, and a lot of these, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't report to the city manager. I think it is a mistake to have a charter where the finance director does not report to the city manager. I think that it's hard for the city manager to prepare a budget, to maintain the finances of the city. Under the charter, the city manager has to give a monthly report to the mayor city council on the city's finances. But the person who's in charge of the finances, the finance director, doesn't report to the city manager. And we just had a situation recently where the finance director told the city manager, I'm not doing that. I don't report to you, you go figure. And so it created a power struggle in City Hall between the city manager and the finance director. And I think that'll never do. You have to somebody has to be in charge. Gotta be one boss.
Right.
And it needs to be the city manager.
So who did the financial director report to?
Technically to the city council, who are all part-time legislators, who are in here every day. So, I mean, how you gonna report to a bunch of people who,
That's like
Section
that's like reporting to us.
Section 3.03, paragraph B2. The city manager is the full-time executive officer of the city, and as such, all department heads, except those who are appointed by and report to the city council,
Mhm.
shall report to the city manager.
Okay.
So those officers, and they're listed, I think you had the list up as well. The city manager,
City
the
attorney.
city attorney, city clerk, tax collector, finance director, internal auditor, and the judge. All report directly to council. And the city manager has no authority over them. Now, the municipal court judge, yeah, that should be out. Even the internal auditor should be out. But city attorney, city clerk, tax collector, and maybe city attorney, I don't know. Mr.
Well,
Wilson.
I'll
But-
say this, you know, at the end of the day, your city attorney needs to report to the city council because the city attorney needs to be able to give advice to the city council. The city manager can say, no, don't say that. The city attorney needs to tell the
Mhm.
council what it is and shoot them straight and give them advice. So your city attorney always needs to report to the council.
So besides that, what we just talked about with, that individual, what other offices or areas that are
I
problematic?
think the clerk needs to report to the city
The
manager,
clerk.
city clerk, finance director,
Mhm.
um,
The tax collector,
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think.
isn't the
So-
city clerk
so
acting
all-
as a tax collector or something?
It's,
All of them report to the council except what?
The
All of them.
judge,
The
in the
finance
city.
director? You talking about right now? or-
All
or
that
in the-
list reports to the council.
Council, okay.
it
That whole
says-
list
it
reports to the
says
council.
shall report to the
I don't know why the judge is reporting.
yeah, the
city
judge-
clerk.
Well, the
Now,
judge
don't-
is attorney.
Yeah, I know they were appointed, but I mean.
Here
they're
is,
still separate.
Mhm.
I want to ask this question because this is kind of strange to me with the charter. Since this is a council city manager form of government, and based on what I read, that like, as Ms. Denmark is stating, that one would expect the other people that's working in the city would report to the city manager. Those pieces, I mean, like, because we did spend a bulk of our time discussing about
Mhm.
mayor
Mhm.
and council things, voting. Those sound like that, them are the real
Mhm.
items, because that are out of alignment with our form of government.
Mhm. Because if you
So
were
if
to
you
look
are
at
aware of those
our
things,
current crisis, our current city crisis, then you would have to look at this. Who reports to the city manager? What authority does the city manager have over these people? It's the finance director, my CFO can be fired by my superintendent. My school board hires my superintendent, and everybody else falls under the superintendent. And so my CFO can be fired by the superintendent, my COO, all these people here can be fired by the superintendent. But there are like the general counsel of the school board is outside of that. They can't be fired, by the superintendent. Only the board.
they're
So
elected.
the elected board selects them. So this is an issue, and I'm glad that it came up because with the exception of the city manager and the city attorney, most of these people need to report to the, city manager. And then the internal auditor, just because that's my profession, I know that in order for us for the internal auditor to be properly, placed, they have to report to the council. Okay, that was one of the weaknesses in the government before. I was internal auditor, but the mayor was able to squash anything that I came up with that he didn't like. It never got to pass. And so that was one of the things that we need to, that needs to stay under.
But the nature of that position provided information that
Mhm.
affected all of it.
It's a governance position.
Right.
It's not an administrative management position. The internal auditor doesn't run a department that does something for the citizen.
Okay.
It only exists to inform the city council or the governing body of how management is performing according to a certain set of standards or measures that the city council or the governing authority puts in.
And that's how I'm trying to just
Mhm.
get the delineation so that those tasks in here that are governance positions we need to make sure that they report to the proper
Yes.
person, and then those, so that's fine, so
Mhm.
governance. I'm just trying to group it into categories,
Yeah.
so when I can approach it at a
Mhm.
bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
Got governance positions, these are reports to the city manager,
Mhm.
no, report to the body
Yeah.
itself.
And then, and I don't know how you feel about this, Mr. Denmark, but I've also been told that we may need to look at, further defining, what constitutes, interference from the elected official.
That's a very good point, sir.
We need to define what that constitutes, so that asking a city council person or the mayor asking the city manager a question, the city manager can't say, you can't ask me that, that's interference.
So, but I've seen it, go to extremes in some communities, they have that one in provision in their charter. Some city managers say, don't speak to a council person. And council person, you can't speak to my employee. And it gets really dicey. And I think that, yet again, you have to kind of understand what the goal and intention of it is. You don't want, a city council member that says, I'm driving past such and such park and I see a couch that's been in the street for 2 days. Y'all need to go pick up that couch. And now you got sanitation for the council person, but the city manager doesn't know that. The city manager wants them someplace else. So now you got two bosses, and the city council telling you what to do, or one individual council member telling you what to do, and the city manager telling you something else. Who you listen? And so usually one voice. And if the city council members want anything done, they call their one employee, city manager. I said, city manager, that couch been on the side of the road 4 days. You need to get somebody to go there and pick it up. Now the city manager, yes, service councilman, I'll handle that. He gets on the phone and calls his people or her people, and they go. And so everything runs through the city manager. Now, that's theoretically fine, but then the gray areas, that's where you define how well a policy works. Sometimes a council member wants information. I need the budget from last year. I need these numbers. And they ask a staff member, and there's, oh no, you can't interfere with it. So our legitimate request for information, is that interference, or it's only when you're directing the staff to go and do certain things. So trying to define council members legitimately requested information, but they can have the information tools to do their job on the one hand versus directing and trying to control employees' day-to-day behavior on the other hand. And so that sweet spot is what a lot of cities struggle with.
I don't see the problem with the request for information, because information is what helps government to function properly. So has anyone had a problem? I mean, I get that there's a tension and that doesn't count information. I get people can debate that definition, but as a general rule, I think that's the perfect thing to do, to say, oh, then when we get around to doing something, it says requests for information are fine, but what problems have you seen in that context of request for information?
Well, it can become overkill, right? Because now it's like, I need this, I need that, and now you got one staff person putting on a hamster wheel, because council members wanting 55 different things, and I can't even do what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm chasing information for council member X.
Gotcha.
And so it can become excessive. And so trying to find that balance is a little bit hard. And sometimes they say you can ask the staff member for information, but you have to copy city manager on the email but now, we get into a little bit of the minutia, but so we just have to think about a way to ensure that.
Yeah. It's
And
kind of, sorry.
No, I was just
Best
gonna-
results is important.
I noticed you said in relation to the job, so the information has to be considered.
Yeah. And we've seen some information requests that have gone sideways where council members say, I'd like to see all of these citizens' emails that we have on our, we send out the news and I want all those emails. Well, guess what? It's election time. And we put 2 and 2 together. Oh, okay, they're gonna send out a thing to everybody on there. So it can't be for your campaign purposes. You can't be opening a vape shop and you wanna send everybody something so they come out and, so it has to be for legitimate city business. Some communities say, well, if a council member wants information, they have to submit an open records act request. Totally disagree with that. They're the governing body. They are the city. And so you can't tell the bosses what they can and can't get. And so I think that where I've seen it work best is when you have a good city manager who can manage it all. But I think we need to have a policy and not rely on a good city manager.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, we should, like, define, you know, what's good, I guess, inquiry versus interference. I think we need to define
Yeah,
the parameters around it.
and also taking advantage to do whatever. I'll let y'all
Yeah.
know, I screened all your emails out of my office marketing campaign because I had to pay for that to go through it. Apparently I captured y'all emails when I sent them out, so I had to pay somebody, screen these emails and get them out of there. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. So we don't want to do that. All right, so that's great. I'm just trying to I just want to hit all the high points. So we got to figure out who reports to whom. We got to talk about what defines interference. Any other pressing thing that you can think of that
The audit,
that-
my person said the audit.
that's right.
My person addressed, the need, and I guess, that would go into section, I guess, 3.12. In regards to audit, city internal audit, she's stating that it's a possibility that we have not completed audits like we were supposed to. That was
That was a public comment that we had.
That was a public comment as well.
External, okay.
Oh.
Now, that's the.
External,
But
okay,
this is the internal audit. The
okay,
external auditor is who conducts the assurance audit on our financials.
okay,
And I don't think it's, I mean, you can look online and see the cities that are up to date on their audits and those that are not, and we just will not.
okay,
And under state law, we have to have an external auditor to audit our books and accounts and records on an annual basis.
mhm,
Because we need to make sure that we're adhering to standard accounting protocols, that all of our money is accounted for. It's a very important thing that we do. You're not eligible for grants if you're on, it's like a tax return, right? You can't go to a bank and say, I want to borrow some money.
Mhm.
First thing I ask you for is to see your last 5 tax returns.
Mhm.
If you ain't filed taxes in 5 years, ain't no way in the world they're gonna give you any money.
Yeah.
And so our audit is like our tax return. So
Mhm.
we're not eligible for grants. We can't borrow money.
Yeah, we can
Uh,
issue
We
bonds.
can't issue bonds.
Mhm.
A lot of things we can't do if our audits are not up to date. And I'm not telling sales at terminals that our audits are not up to date.
Yeah, that was a public comment. She said, the lady said.
and my,
Yes.
my representative
Yeah.
talked about making
Right.
sure we have a safeguard in the auditing process.
Yeah, but that all some of that comes back to your finance director.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And your finance director being accountable and being held accountable because, you can't do an audit if your books aren't closed.
Oh,
You can't get an audit done if your books ain't in order.
I understand. I just want to make sure when we talk about things that that's important, that was one of the things that,
It's very important.
that she mentioned.
I'm wondering, was she mentioning that in regards to that, because I was reading over this, and that information, the internal audit should be presented to the city council, and they haven't.
I'm gonna get back with her to get some clarification, so I will table mine. I just wanted to go on the record to say that she did mention.
But our external audit,
There are 2 audits.
It's internal and external.
Right, in state law imposing external audit requirements.
Mhm.
And that's the audit I'm talking about, that's like the tax return, that
Mhm.
external audit. And our auditing firm is a company called Baldwin and Jenkins, accounting firm, and they do an external audit for a lot of communities around the city and around the southeast. And so we're behind external audit. Our internal auditor is a function of the charter,
Okay.
and that's very, very important as well. That's internal stuff, but I just want to make sure it's audit. we were talking
Okay,
about external.
I get clarification that.
We can only
I
affect the
think
internal
this
audit
is
as
what
far as
she
the
was
charter.
talking
is.
about.
Okay.
She mentioned about they had not gotten that information.
Yeah.
and I also, since you brought up the internal auditor, it was brought to my attention that the internal auditor under the charter now must be a direct employee of the city. And, I wanted to, well, I didn't want to, it was requested that we open this up again for discussion to see if the external auditor can be a firm, the internal auditor can be a firm contracted by the city, as opposed to an individual hired by the city.
What are that's probably a deeper question, but that's like, what are the costs associated with that?
Yeah,
And then,
Well, the thing is, for a city this size, internal auditor is not a full-time job. In my opinion.
Mhm.
internal auditor for a city. Now, currently, what we dealing with currently, you could make the case for a full-time job for at least a year, maybe a year and a half. Because we got so much stuff that needs to be internally reviewed and presented to council. So, yeah, I think for the next 18 to 24 months, if you hire a firm, it's gonna be full-time. But in normal times, the business of this city, and if you look at the size of our city budget, an internal auditor is a part-time proposition. Because it's not so much money and ins and outs. It's not like the school district. My school district has almost a $2 billion a year budget, 14,000 employees, 94,000 students. That's,
So we're in, the charter, it states that it's a part-time position.
it doesn't.
It does not. show.
Okay, okay,
You just saying that just not the amount of
That's
work
what-
that would
Yeah,
change. But
okay,
now,
and I'm just saying that because that's my profession.
okay,
That's all.
okay.
but now I know that some of the business that I believe is coming to Stonecrest now, like all that over there, that is gonna be developed.
Mhm.
And I would imagine that's gonna have an increase on tax dollars coming in and some infrastructure matters as well. So that auditor position might, I
Mhm.
think, become a full-time position. And I don't, so I got you. I just feel like that we're moving that way. I feel kind of quickly, but I don't know. I mean, no, the councilman wouldn't
Yeah.
share with me what was coming. 'Cause I
All
was
I'm gonna
like,
say is think for the future. All I can say is think for the future.
No, and that's why I was gonna say, when you're saying like, oh, a city decides and that it's not a full-time, it's a part-time. Because when you, well, for me, and my sister that passed, she was CPA, and she worked for the Internal Revenue Service. And what I would say is that you want to make sure you got good accountability of the dollars
Yeah.
that are coming in and going out.
Mhm.
Because it's my recollection, I hate to go back to the past, but I think it was that COVID money that caused the problems for our former mayor. And, that was unforeseen money, because COVID was unforeseen for this city. But it was a blessing in disguise for us, because it uncovered some things that more than likely have been going on all along. And with federal dollars, it was not allowed. So that's why I would say we need to have excellent accountability of the dollars. And since that, going in and out, it is.
And that's why, to me, that speaks more to who the internal auditor reports to. Because I don't want to get into, I was here, okay? So I took actions, other actions were taken, but I wound up resigning. Because the advice that I was giving was not being followed, and I saw what was coming. And so it's who this person reports to. If they report to the mayor or they report to the city manager, that's the fox guarding the hen house. They need to report to the city council.
Well, in section 3.13, the city manager, with the approval of the city council, may consolidate any two or more of these positions as a city clerk, city tax collector, city accountant, and any other positions, or may assign the function of any one or more positions to be holder or holders of any other position. So the city manager also has the authority to do that with the city council. So I'm a little confused. You know what I'm saying? And that's on page 30 of 47. So the city manager has, yeah, and I think that's where I feel like I'm a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah. Somebody asked for that, for us to even get rid of that. Consolidating position.
So that's another item that needs to be considered.
I mean, the issue of consolidating the position of the internal auditor, the internal auditor has to be independent and report to the city council, in my opinion.
Mhm.
If that internal auditor is also, let's say, the city clerk, then of course the city manager. Well, you're wearing two hats. I'm your employee and I report to you, Madam City Manager. I'm also independent and I report to the council. And that's an untenable position. So you either need to have a full-time internal auditor, or we need to change it such that the internal auditor can be, an independent firm, not a city employee, so that they can maintain their independence. But only, we don't waste the money on a full-time position, when right now, at least, it's only a part-time job.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think maybe you could put, instead of saying it's one or the other, it could be either one or the other.
Yeah.
As the situation calls for. If we have part-time needs, we can hire a firm that gives us an hourly person. If we have full-time needs, then we can hire somebody. That reports directly to the city council.
So does that mean that each year you solicit a bid to become an independent contractor for this job?
I think you can solicit a bid, and it could have, annual renewals, because you can't go over 1 year on a contract in Georgia. So you can have annual renewal. And then, so if the person didn't perform up to par, you can deny the renewal and put another bid out. If they have, and you don't have to go through the expense of putting out another bid, you can just renew.
I thought that we was trying to get away from contracting out and hire employees. So that was my understanding, because we had the big contract issue with the whole staff left, and then we were,
Yeah.
we didn't have nobody running anything.
But y'all
So,
I mean,
want- some of these
But
things
some
are gonna be
jobs-
what y'all want.
Some jobs,
no, the firm did, if they ran the
They
city,
ran the city.
and then when the contract was over, all that experience left
Yeah.
out the door,
When
so
the
we
city
was sitting up
decided
there
that they
like,
wanted- Yeah.
you know, and that's why it was agreed that we would hire employees rather than contractors.
But not all or nothing though, right? Because some situations you need a contract, like you do external auditor.
Right.
I mean, that's gonna be a contractor, and, your lobbyist is gonna be a contractor. So some positions, in the main, you're right, Ms. Brown, I mean, like 89.9% of them are gonna be rank and file employees. But then there are a few little positions that probably need to be contracted, and some of those are professional services under our procurement policy that don't have to be bid. So we don't have to bid out professional services like your attorney, you don't have to bid out your lobbyist, you don't have to bid out your external auditor, other financial professionals. So there's a provision in the purchasing policy that specifically exempts professional services. And the thought being that somebody that needs to be fiduciary and give you that close advice, that's a relationship. You should get who you want and not have to go with the low bidder.
well, what I guess I would recommend that you consider is not to give all of your needs to one contractor, you know,
Right.
like.
Yeah.
Like he said,
Mhm.
you know, there's some things that will stand alone from that kind of business.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is behind us with the CH2Ms and the Jacobs
Mhm.
and all of that. I mean, it was mismanaged.
We
in
got
the
a new
situation
ladder,
From the beginning,
okay.
because Tucker is still rolling along. But that's beside the point. It's a Stonecrest, not Tucker.
Yeah.
So,
And and I know we're comparing cities to cities, but what we want for our city is what I want us to discuss.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing my own research on how other cities are doing and how they're managing. You know, I don't want to be compared to anybody. I want us to do what we can to fix what we can without, in our control. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because it was brought to my attention by who I represent that these are the things that need to be addressed.
yeah, and some of those things are charter related, some of them aren't. And just like with this public comments and some of the things that I've also gotten from people in the elected representation, some of those things are charter related, some of them are not.
Well,
So-
audit is 5.07, so,
Yeah, internal audit is, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that what with the overriding issue is when it comes to audits is that the city's audit has not been done.
Mhm.
You know, that has nothing to do with the internal audit.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that needs to be a point of concern,
Mhm.
The other audit. You talking
Yeah.
about, yeah.
yeah,
And also, I want to say this too. The elected officials are not the only people who have a say in it. They're giving us their opinion.
Just like the people that last week, they
Yeah,
came and gave
And
their
their
opinion.
opinion. So
And that, and
yeah,
audit
those
was
don't-
one of those things that was
Those
brought up
don't
as well.
carry, but I guess what I'm saying is, the elected officials' opinions and demands carry no more or less weight than the citizens.
They,
They
are,
don't-
but they
They're
are
aligned.
citizens as
Yes,
well.
They are
They're
citizens,
aligned.
but they are citizens who
I
are
don't wanna
elected.
argue.
I wanna
I
argue.
wanna have,
So.
Have my
so let's-
opinion.
Let's nail this down, this agenda item down. I'm trying to elicit discussion and get people to think outside of the box. There's been a whole lot of propaganda out there on social media and everything else, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. What I try to do is I try to clear out the misinformation while I'm trying to preside. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to force anybody to think of something.
well,
Okay, Chair.
we
Okay, I was gonna ask you.
were asked in this committee to go to our person and talk about what some of their items are. So I'm not bringing up something that they're the only person. This committee asked me to go and talk to my person. So I would like to at least respectfully allow to speak about what they're saying without feel like I'm stepping on somebody's toes or concerns, because I'm a citizen as well. I have concerns about the audit. Why the audit's not finished? That's a question that, I'm asking my representative. Why is it not finished? We're having this discussion in here. It should be. It's like he said, it's stopping us from getting grants, it's stopping us from having certain type of things because we're not in compliance.
You're absolutely right.
And we need to be in compliance.
Or have a way
I
to make sure
believe-
that we get it compliant.
Exactly.
It was,
Thank you.
And who do
Michelle
we get the boot on to make sure that this rolls?
Manuel.
Right, thank you.
I think she brought,
That's
she
where I was.
mentioned that, but she was talking about cybersecurity. You
Yes.
remember Michelle Manuel?
Yeah.
And I think that was something that she brought up, as it relates to money that the city was missing out on as a result of that.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I don't want anything I'm saying to be misconstrued, okay?
So whose role would that be
Mhm.
to boost these elected officials, or whomever,
What
is responsible?
you mean for the audit?
Uh-huh.
My suggestion would be to make it just like the budget. Under state law, we have a schedule, and that budget has to proceed along a certain timeline, and we have to have that budget by the end of the year. It's state law. And we can, by a similar process, that we have to have our audits done, same way, so we can impose that standard on ourselves, the same way we do, we have to have a balanced budget, that we submitted by a certain time. Now we're gonna say our audits have to be completed by a certain time frame, and I think we can codify that in our charter, so it ain't just something that's aspirational, that we
Thank
want to
you.
do.
Thank
It's
you.
something that's mandated in our charter that has to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When
That's
you
where I
say
want-
that,
Where do we
Mr.
start?
Denmark, now,
So that's
in
gonna be-
section 5.07, the B, for B, it says, as a minimum of all audits and budgets of the city shall satisfy the requirement of chapter 81 of the title 36 of the official codes of Georgia annotated relating to local government audits and budgets.
So that's.
So that is in the,
Well,
Charter.
I'm not sure that the timeline is in there, and furthermore, that's only referring us back to state law.
Which number was
What
that?
I'm suggesting
It's
is that
5.07, page 34.
we have a separate standard that in our charter, something that doesn't necessarily relate back to state law, but that we as a community impose on ourselves and our charter, say by this date, either we can say November 1 or December 31st or whatever, the audit will be completed. And so I'm suggesting that we impose that standard on ourselves in our charter.
okay, then that could be like a C. And
Yeah, we need to add verbiage to
We need to
5.07.
add that to it.
So basically follow that, referencing that, and then we could put our drop dead date.
In the,
Drop dead date.
Well, not necessarily drop dead date, but.
Yeah, it'll be the first Monday of or
Yeah.
last.
A recommended date.
Yeah,
A recommended date, and if it doesn't happen, somebody's going to lose a job or something.
yeah.
Oh, now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
that's
Denmark.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've gotten past discussion of the form of government. Okay, and then we kind of slid into charter section questions and assignments. I think we kind of moved over into that as we started we continued on with our discussion. We've gone through a few sections outside of the mayor and city council powers. I did want to ask Mr. Denmark, if something like neighborhood planning units, if that's something that can be added to the charter, or is that a zoning issue that would be important?
And we define it.
Yeah, I was just gonna add point of
Okay,
information.
a neighborhood planning unit, a neighborhood planning unit is an official organ of the city that composed of citizens that are the first line on zoning issues, zoning and development issues. Currently, developers are obligated to notify people within 1,000 feet of the property and stuff like that. And they have to have a public meeting, and no public meeting has to come before you come before the zoning commission, the planning and zoning commission and stuff like that. What a neighborhood planning unit is an official unit of the city prior to the planning commission that is made up of people within a certain geographical area. And they have official meetings with the developers, public meetings with citizens, and they take votes to recommend, just like the chart, they recommend approval or denial of a particular project.
So where's that at in the chart?
It's not. That's what
Oh,
I'm asking.
okay.
If
Okay.
that's something we can add in, and if this is my
Creating a new.
creating that,
a new-
because here's my issue. All zoning issues are brought forward in the same commission, in the same meeting, and the neighborhoods have an undersized voice in what happens. We have a few citizens in certain areas of the city that have an outsized voice in developments that happen in parts of the city that they don't live in. And I've seen them often override the desires of the people in those neighborhoods because they think the city should be different. And I believe that this is another way to bring the government closer to the people, which was the objective of forming the city in the first place, so that people in the neighborhood have the first say of whether or not they want a certain development.
And if they run it now, you can't do nothing in landlord getting NPU. It's like, you can't put nothing there. Some people, developers hate it, I mean, but think about something like Metro Green. I mean,
Yeah, Metro Green, that's the
I mean,
one.
they would have had to go to those citizens in that community, and they would have been able to skate, obscure a sign in the bushes, and they would have had to come to these people. And they'd have got cussed out. No, it would have been a spirited meeting, but we think we know how it would have gone. But that's the advantage where you're going to maintain. You have to go through those
That's the
citizens.
neighborhood.
Right. Nobody's going to get surprised. I didn't see the sign. That goes away.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Still
my-
fighting that Metro Green.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, my thoughts are anything that we're proposing or thinking of modifying. I'm thinking about it from a whiteboard perspective, where in the middle of this, I'm asking myself the question: what's in the best interest of the city or the community? And that suggestion sounds good personally, because it gives voice, gives the community an opportunity to have a voice and say so of what takes place and what does not take place in their immediate environment.
Yeah. The NPU stands for Neighborhood Planning.
No, I think we have
It's
to.
right down here.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
See, that ain't right.
All right. I
Yeah.
just,
No, you got it right there.
you know,
No, I think we absolutely need that because it can go south. I don't want the patchwork. I don't want it to look like, Memorial Drive. I don't want it to look like certain other places. I need to have
Yeah.
that.
and you don't want every vacant lot to be a gas station.
Right, and that your
Well,
neighborhood become
Yeah.
zoning for all halfway houses.
Right.
That's a
so-
problem. And we need to stop it.
Okay.
And so I think this is my opinion. Okay, this is not coming from anybody else. Nobody advised this. This came from me. That we don't have a strong enough voice as citizens. What goes on and what doesn't go on in our community. And what brought it to me is not the influx of things that we don't want. There have been some things that we wanted, but certain citizens have an outsized voice because they're at every meeting. They have the time to come to every planning meeting, every city council meeting, they're in public comments every time there's a mic open. Just because they're that active does, I don't believe they have the right to determine what happens in the neighborhood on the other side of town. If the people on the other side of town, if that's what they want in their neighborhood. You know, and so I think the neighborhood planning unit act both ways. Is to prohibit things that people don't want in their neighborhood, that maybe the city or somebody else thinks is a good idea. And to have things in their neighborhood that maybe somebody who lives back off in the woods doesn't necessarily want, but I live in a denser part of the city close to I-20, and I'd like to have it.
Let me, it's because I just thought about this, because you have neighborhood planning unit. Is this something that would be, because we have 5 districts, a unified body of the whole city, or would this be
No, and by definition, they would be,
each district would
And-
have a unit?
and you might
There'll
have,
be multiple.
you might have multiple units.
Oh,
At one time, there was a firm that was contracted, I guess, that was going around. I went to a couple of the meetings.
The comprehensive plan,
The what?
the comprehensive plan. that
Yes,
firm-
is that an official plan for the whole area? Because
yes.
that was not a good plan
It's been adopted.
for some areas. And I just wanna know who approved that.
That's state law though, that the cities
Mhm.
have to
Have
create
a
a
comprehensive
comprehensive plan.
Yeah, the comprehensive plan, and the firm said that they were employed to do it.
Mhm.
And, I mean, I went to 2 of the sessions, and I guess I was the
Yeah.
granny of the whole group.
Right.
How was I, people wonder why was I
Well,
interested?
we had,
But that was really not a good plan for a lot of things, you know, and some of the things that they said are not possible, for them to do.
mhm.
I mean, and that was my concern. I didn't follow up on the whole deal, but, it's not a good plan.
Right. Well, I know our business community, was very vocal about the plan and how it did not include, all aspects of development, and it did not include the voice of everybody who could have contributed.
And the school system,
And, yeah, and the fact that they took everything, they went back here, and then they came back out with a plan that all you could do was vote it up or down.
Right.
And so,
it was just a firm that got paid.
Mhm.
That's what it was.
but, I would like to, and so, Mr. Denmark, the neighborhood planning units, would that have to be a whole new section?
I'm wrestling in my mind with whether it's an amendment to the zoning ordinance. I'm thinking we could do it in the charter, but under the state law, we have the zoning procedures law. And I think we're changing how we're doing zoning, we have to comply with the zoning procedures law. I need to think about it, okay, and see how we need to do that. I would like it to be enshrined in our charter, because I want it to be elevated to that level. Ordinance. We could do it in the charter.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for your advisement.
Out of curiosity, because in this section D, because we're in section D now, my question is, it says charter section questions and assignment on these. My question is toward the assignment section. Are we going to be assigning sections now for what we want to work on, or we just gonna just as a group, just kind of tackle the whole thing? I'm just trying to figure out what that assignment part is.
I would like us to kind of divide and conquer some of these things, as opposed to having to wait for us to all come together. It's like with the audits.
Mhm.
Now we know there's a section that we can modify
Mhm.
for the audit.
Okay.
And so that could be something,
Yeah,
since,
I
you
can
know,
take that on. I don't have a problem.
and, you know, so I would like to assign some of these things for us to focus on. And we can have dialogue apart, away from the meeting and stuff like that, as long as we're not in a quorum and actually conducting business or vote. So, section 5.07 audits. Ms. Brown, would you be willing to take that one on?
Yes.
Okay. Kirby, help me out. We had some other sections that we were looking at, and we want to look at the budget too. We want to look at the budget.
You want me looking?
Mhm.
We were looking at 3.03.
3.03.
Yeah, it's one. Talk about paragraph 2. I think it's more like the reporting structure.
Yeah.
Finance department.
Three point
Yeah,
oh three,
the reporting structure of the appointed people.
the 3.03, city manager, chief administration officer.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then we're looking at section B, paragraph 2.
section B, paragraph.
Okay,
And I guess we could look at section 5 as well, because that has to do with interference.
section
Article
five.
3.
And you said, what you say, Ms. Walker?
Well, no, I mean, because we're looking like specific sections, I'm saying all of these are, falling under Article 3. And that's the executive branch, knowledge and duty. I'm trying to see something here. Yeah, because all of these. That's to do with the executive branch. I'm gonna call you.
Okay.
And
We
then-
also had,
We just gonna do like a group thing on 3 on duties and powers of the mayor.
3.01.
Yeah, yeah.
No, see, that's what,
Yeah.
that's the
Think that
reason
needs
why
to-
Yeah.
I'm questioning about that, because it's really like that Article 3, which took up a good portion because.
and the thing is, when we decide on these things about the mayor and council, and that's why I kind of brought it up first, there's language that flows throughout the rest of the charter that refers to mayor, council, mayor and council, and things, and all of that would have to be straightened out. Okay? It was suggested that we refer to mayor and council as the governing authority. We define the governing authority as the mayor and council. So when something has to be done by the mayor and council, we would say the governing authority. When it's something specific to the mayor, it says mayor. When it's something specific to the city council, we'd say city council. That was a suggestion that I received.
In the language of how it's written.
Yeah. So there's no ambiguity, because when you're reading, you see mayor and council, and you might see council and skip mayor, or vice versa. But if you say governing authority, you know that's the mayor and the council together have to do. And some things the mayor appoints, some things the council approves, or adopts.
I got you. That works. I mean, I'm all for, I'm all for definition, you know.
Mhm.
As long as, yeah, really defined. clearly how it is, so read it.
Yep.
You can refer to it.
There was also, and I hate to throw this in on the last, addition of one more appointed person, being a police chief or a public safety director, in the charter. To add that as an appointed position to the list, that we already have, that includes the, get that.
We don't have,
This is, I was gonna say that for some reason, when we had our meeting, it was almost alluded to that there's been a decision, you can help me out, Lori, to have a, police department. Was that what was
She
said?
said that we have three, departments, and I can't remember, don't quote me on that. Let me double check with her and see what she said, because I'm gonna go back with her and talk to her about some of the notes that we had to get some clarification, because she was supposed to send me some information, and, we haven't reconnected, so I'll make sure I do that. That's my action.
does anyone have any insight in reference to that?
Cause is that where you're questioning of
Yeah.
like, what is the purpose of this public safety? We don't have a police
Yeah, I'm
force.
like, we got a police chief, but we don't have.
Right, and so I'm kind of blind to that too. I don't
Well,
have any facts.
that-
have the
That's what I'm
capacity.
saying. I cannot say with uncertainty, but usually when I think that I heard something, there's some truth there, that it appeared to me that what had been stated is, I believe they have decided on, establishing a police department.
What is, I mean, it's in the budget, for
Okay.
the position of, public safety director. That's in the city's budget, like, you can look it up. Now, it is not budgeted to have a police department, but I mean, you can kind of do some simple math and figure out the direction that we're likely headed. Right now, we pay, part of our taxes to DeKalb County, they provide police, fire, trash pickup, so on and so forth. If we ever wanted to take over one of those services, then DeKalb County, the millage that they collect for police will be transferred to the city, so that's we establish it on.
And for some reason, when you said that public safety, I think that's what it was,
Okay.
that they had,
Had some discussions about it.
discussions, and almost seemed like, I think that was stated, that we were, heading, that they had agreed to, look into creating,
Yeah.
taking on that.
We-
service.
What would be the role
Public
of the
safety.
role?
We need some.
Yeah, we definitely need.
I can
I
see
mean,
a public
I'm
safety
Yeah,
director.
we had different conversations in a public meeting about it, because, the good folks over from, subdivision over there, who were having home invasions and break-ins.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They kept saying, we need to do something about this crime in Stonecrest is an issue, and the thought is that DeKalb County is not providing adequate resources for this part of the county, and that we could take the dollars that we pay to DeKalb County to protect us, keep them here in Stonecrest, and do our own police department, based on, I mean, the millions that we spend in tax dollars to DeKalb County to get what many people would be inferior service. We could take those same millions, engage our own office, our own department, and we don't have to worry about somebody coming to our house and tying us up.
I was stuck at Klondike and Brownsville from street racing for about 45 minutes, where I could not get from that BP station. I mean, these kids had masks on, they had semi-automatic weapons. I had called 911, and they pretty much knew what the call was. I had to sit in this traffic, because they just get out their cars and they just blockade, and they know what time they change shifts. And I was terrified, and that was coming from a friend's house. It's about maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock.
At
So
night,
Recent.
at night.
at night.
Oh, yeah, I see the drag.
Yeah, I
marks
see
in the
the-
street.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean,
I
they
see
actually
remnant.
block it off, and as soon as the lights come, they disperse. But the response time,
Or you're never gonna catch it. That's because they know that. But I have a question along those lines. The sheriff is the elected law enforcement official for the county. Is there no, if for DeKalb, like I know when I deal with cases in Rockdale and Newton, and other cases, the sheriff's department is the police department. So I'm curious as to whether there is capacity or room for some type of arrangement with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Department to, I mean, I'm not saying I want to, I just want to know if they, to work here, because right, DeKalb County Police, I know I called, there was a shooting in my neighborhood, and the people called and said, hey, there was a shooting, and they have people shoot in the community behind me regularly. I never see the police officer show up. I mean, ever. I've never heard the lights blue. I've never seen any of that.
That's something that we looked at in the Governors Commission.
Mhm.
And we actually spoke to the Sheriff's Department at the time. This was prior to the sheriff we have now. And we were actually moving in that direction. When the elected officials took over, they scrapped it. So I don't know. What I do know is that when we formed the city, our first attempt was denied because the city wouldn't be feasible by trying to fund a police department. Just did not have the,
But think about it like this, our friends in Henry County, they have the Henry County Sheriff, and all 159 counties in the state of Georgia, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer. People think about the sheriff running the jail and courthouse security and serving warrants. No, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer in every county in the state of Georgia. In addition to that, in some counties, some of the larger counties, you have, in addition to the sheriff, you have a county police department, like they have in Clayton County, like we have in DeKalb, like they have in Henry. But even still, in some communities, in addition to the sheriff and the county police, you have city police, like you have in the city of Forest Park. You got Clayton County Sheriff, Clayton County Police, City of Forest Park. We would be like that. And in Stockbridge, our neighbors in Stockbridge, for a long time, they contracted with the county to provide police services through an IGA. They got to a place where they figured the county's not doing a good enough job. We need boots on the ground right here. We don't need y'all to put a precinct here and it gets us when y'all get to us. We need our own police chief, our own police officers, our city of Stockbridge, who are accountable to us. And so they said, Henry County, those millions that we send you, you're gonna take them back, start our own police department, and probably do the same, a better job for less money.
Mhm.
And that's what we're thinking about. So we're doing a feasibility in the city of Stonecrest, so whether it is feasible to take the money that the Cobb County allocates for police services or they collect from our city and do it ourselves. And that's where we are right now, trying to crunch the numbers.
That's what I'm saying, and that's why I was just curious as to whether there was some collaboration that could be done with the sheriff department. I don't know if it involved, the money over there or just, hey, you all have been running the jail, because I mean, I felt that some sheriffs seem to be wanting to do that to get more into the law enforcement, because I feel like we're just the perfect area to do it in right now.
Because some people say if the sheriff wanted to do it, he would have done it by now. I mean, you said, if you're the Constitution says that you are the chief law enforcement officer in DeKalb County. That you already have that mandate.
Right.
And if people getting tied up in their houses and Ms. Brown can't get home for 45 minutes because these youngins out here tearing up and doing donuts in the middle of the street.
Mhm.
Well, the sheriff was the chief law enforcement officer when all that was going on. But elected not to do anything or didn't have a, so we're gonna say what now? Say what to him? Pay him some money to do what he's constitutionally bound to do and haven't been doing. So some people say, well, we've had enough of the sheriff, we've had enough of the police department. That's when we started the city of Stonecrest, because we could take the money that, I'm a Stonecrest taxpayer, I live in District 5.
Right.
And I just got my tax bill, I know what I pay. I would rather see those dollars right here in my own neighborhood, as opposed to sending them to Decatur, to Cobb County for their multi-billion-dollar budget, and I'm getting poor service.
Well,
Yeah, Sandy
okay.
Spring went to that last year, didn't it? I think so.
Now, we're talking about safety. I know we're getting ready to end this meeting. And the only thing and this is gonna be kind of like somewhat funny, but we're getting ready to leave out up here at Stonecrest City Hall. And I don't like being over here because when you walk out this building, that parking lot is very dark. And I'm like, we got money I'm just saying, we got money to try to, considering with the public safety, but one of the basic of safety in my house is well lit up with cameras all around it. It's having a well lit area. So I'm just saying, if there are some inconsistencies in our city.
That's a
that's
city
going on.
issue.
No, that's what I'm
That's
pointing
a
out.
housekeeping
Is we
issue.
finna get ready to walk, and even the citizens are gonna get ready, and hopefully there's nobody out there to mug any of us. Because it's pitch black out there,
That's a housekeeping issue.
inadequate light.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the priorities of the city is out of order because they don't take care of the small things and they trying to address big things. So I'm like, if you can't take care of the small things, as I say, I hear what you say, but I'm watching what you're doing. And if you can't take care of the small things, then I'm concerned about you telling me that I'm gonna not be tied up because you put up public safety.
But wouldn't that be the city manager's job? You have someone that's over physical structure
Yeah.
as well.
And
So,
yeah,
we need to start from
in the budget.
the house.
Mhm. That's why we
Clean it
got
up.
SPOS dollars. We didn't charge SPOS just to pave streets.
That's
Yeah,
right.
SPOS is supposed to pay for a lot
All
of
of that.
things. So I think that we covered everything that we could. Our next meeting, are we trying to have just one more meeting in December?
I mean,
I'm not sure. I mean, we can-
I was
My
just early
December is
December,
looking-
Mr. Chair.
First week in December.
Yeah.
I will try to get one scheduled, hope we can have a forum, but that will be our last meeting for the year. I don't see us going deep into the holidays, with this.
I guess we need a motion now, and then a motion
So, motion to.
to table the scheduling and approving of the next meeting date until we get further notice. Is that how we did it crazy the last time? Or-
Yeah, because we gotta get a date
Right,
available from the city clerk.
okay. So that's my motion. My motion is to
So,
table the scheduling and approval of the next date until we get a approved time from whatever the authorities happen to be.
okay,
That's my motion. 'Cause I think.
all right, do I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Mhm.
we're set for adjournment. Yeah, did you post this?
I think I posted
Yeah, I
it.
think you posted
I
this.
was like,
Yeah,
September 2nd. Well,
Yeah.
it happened the 1st and the 2nd because I was stuck.
You know, that might have been, somebody posted something,
Mhm.
and maybe.
Yeah.
It might have been me.
Yeah.
You that-
I saw a
I
post.
thought
I was
something
like-
that-
Yeah.
And my kids were just screaming, my mom, I told you to go back. I was like, but you guys made it out. I thought I could make it out.
Well, you know, they pick, spots all over, you know, and
Yeah.
all over Metro.
With
All right,
this week,
can I get
know-
can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, this meeting is now.
I'm gonna.
But-
Sorry. My wife is saying, so